Saint Marie of the Incarnation Guyart, a visionary nun whose dedication to faith and education left an indelible mark on history. Her writings are among the most important accounts of the founding of the colony of New France and the establishment of the Roman Catholic Church in the Americas. Her work as a teacher helped to lay the foundations for formal education in Canada. Daughter of a baker, she was raised in a family of craftsmen and tradesmen and was related on her mother's side to the noble Barbon de la Bourdaissière family. From childhood, Marie showed signs of an unusual spiritual life, marked by mystical visions of Jesus. She said that at age 7, she had received a spiritual calling to devote herself entirely to God. She therefore gradually stopped playing with children her own age and instead spent her time reading devotional books and meditating. A pious and sometimes mystical child, she would memorize and recite homilies and early wanted to become a nun. Against her wishes, she entered an arranged marriage with Claude Martin, a silk manufacturer. He died in 1619 after just 2 years of marriage, leaving her with a 6-month-old son, Claude. Marie took care of liquidating the family business, which had gone bankrupt. After her husband died, Marie put her son in the care of a wet nurse and went back to live in her parents' home. She spent a year living on the top floor like a recluse and devoting much of her time to meditation and prayer while doing needlework to earn a living. Her family encouraged her to remarry, but instead, she chose to take a vow of chastity. On 24th March 1620, she had a mystical and emotional conversion experience.
There were great spaces, and in these spaces, a church enveloped in mists. From the place in which we were there was a road to go down. It was exceedingly dangerous because of having terrible rocks on one side and awful and unguarded precipices on the other. The afflicted place I had seen was New France. I felt a very great inward attraction in that direction, and an order to go there to build a house for Jesus and Mary. I was in consequence so keenly possessed that I gave my consent to our Lord and promised to obey him.
She decided to withdraw from the world, but her sister and her brother-in-law asked her to stay and help them rebuild their failing transportation business. She agreed and took on many responsibilities, including administration, the handling of goods, and the health of the company's employees. The business prospered, but Marie continued to experience visions of spiritual marriage to God. She spent her free time in meditation, prayer, and penitence. She also took her son back, but refrained from showing him too much affection, so as to prepare him for the separation that she knew would come when she entered religious orders. In 1631, despite the considerable pain that it caused her to leave her 11-year-old son behind with her sister, Marie Guyart entered the cloister of the Ursulines in Tours and took the name of Marie de l'Incarnation. Total separation from her family and the outside world was one of the conditions for entering the order. In other words, she had had to choose between God and her son.
One morning in 1631, my son was resigned to come with me. Walking with me, he made no mention of his affliction, but I could see the tears in his eyes. I felt as my soul being torn out of me, that I was being rent in two, but I allowed no emotion as God was dearer to me than all of that, and leaving him to her hands, I laughed as I bade him farewell.
She took her vows in 1633 and taught Christian doctrine for the next 6 years. At age 34 or 35, she had what she believed to be an out-of-body experience, in which she saw her spirit traveling to various countries where there were souls to convert, including Canada. Her visions, together with her reading of the Jesuit Relations, accounts of life in Canada by missionaries from the Society of Jesus, convinced her that God was calling her to Canada. She worked for years to collect the money and support for her mission, and in 3rd April 1639, she sailed from Dieppe with Marie-Madeleine de la Peltrie, one of her primary supporters. She landed in New France on 4th July 1639 and arrived in the future Quebec, Canada, on 1st August 1639. She was the first superior of the Ursulines in Canada, worked as a missionary to the natives and other residents in the area. On August 1st, 1639, Marie de l'Incarnation arrived in Quebec City with 2 other Ursuline nuns and Madame de la Peltrie. the patron of the Ursuline order in New France. There, they founded a convent and the first school for girls in the lower town. By 1642, the Ursulines had moved into a new stone monastery in the upper town. Marie de l'Incarnation passionately dedicated herself to educating both French and Indigenous girls. From her earliest days in Canada, she worked tirelessly to convert Indigenous people to Catholicism and French culture, aiming to assimilate them. The Ursulines' education was intended to encourage Indigenous girls to abandon their nomadic lifestyle, adopt the Catholic faith, and wear French-style clothing. The goal was to have the girls forsake their original culture and become ideal brides for French men. To facilitate this assimilation, the Ursulines showed some flexibility regarding the girls' language and diet. However, by 1668, Marie de l'Incarnation admitted her efforts with Indigenous girls had failed. Subsequently, the Ursulines shifted their focus to educating the daughters of French colonists. Marie de l'Incarnation authored theological works, a catechism in Iroquois, and Algonquin and Iroquois dictionaries. Despite being cloistered, she engaged with public affairs and received notable visitors, including Bishop François de Laval. In 1646, she co-wrote a constitution for the Ursulines in New France with Jesuit Jérôme Lallemand. A fire destroyed the monastery in 1650, leading to its expansion during Reconstruction. Marie's extensive writings include 277 preserved letters and an autobiography, Relation de 1654. She died at 72 in Quebec City. Beatified in 1980, she was canonized by Pope Francis in 2014, celebrated at a Mass in Rome. Saint Marie of the Incarnation Guyart remains a beacon of faith, resilience, and dedication to education.